there, and welcome to Shooting and Country TV. And in this episode we're going to take a look at two products from IRay. We've got the RH50, the Rico, and the Tube TL35. The big one in the collection is obviously the Rico, so we'll just put this one down for a second. It's something a little bit different for IRay. They've gone toe-to-toe with Pulsar with this product. It's very, very impressive in terms of image quality. We'll get to that a little bit later because I've had the latest Pulsar and this side by side for quite some time on a field test, and well, the results are interesting. And there's a full review in the July issue of Rifle Shooter. They go side by side with the Tube. And it's an interesting read, I think. But anyway, we'll go through the basics on the Rico first. Obviously, it's sled based as opposed to tube based like the Pulsar. For some people, that's a big deal. For me, not really such a problem. A lot of people like to maintain the sort of head and eye position on a tube scope. Obviously, with the sled, you're slightly elevated over the bore, should I say, which is, on a centre fire, it's not as big a deal, to be honest with you. My shooting buddy Simon, he won't really entertain it. He wants things to be tube mounted. He doesn't like rail mounted stuff, but I've got no problem with it really. The only thing you do need to do if you are going to go down the sort of sled based approach is get yourself some kind of comb riser. Either an adjustable comb on the stock, which is, if it's that fitted at the factory, that's ideal. If not, something like this turbine riser, and that uses these stiff sort of sponge inserts, and you just pop those in, pop it over, and it's plenty firm enough, and it gets your cheekbone actually on the stock. You get a very consistent eye position, which you do need with one of these. In terms of the device itself, it's very, very simple. Basic on-off power. Everything cycles in, I think it's five cycles. So you've got 4 or 5 levels of magnification. You've got 4, could be 5 color combinations. But basically, you just hit the button and repeat and just click through until you get to the selection you want. You've got stills, you've got video, you've got picture-in-picture. It mirrors a lot of the functionality of the Pulsars. I'd say the Pulsars, they have more fine-tuning within the design. They usually go like this, goes from 1 to 5. The Pulsars will go 1 to 10. In the field, it doesn't make a great deal of difference to me. To be honest, when it comes to, say, if you're out foxing or whatever form of shooting, the magnification, there's not a lot of time, especially when you're foxing, to mess around with the mag too much. So I quite like the functionality of just pressing once, twice, 3 times, just to cycle up. It just makes the job quicker, and especially for foxing, that's important. You can do the same thing with the Pulsar. That will just cycle up from one sort of magnification to the next, but it also has the ability to dial up as well, so you can go in smaller increments, and that probably personifies the difference between the two. I'd say the Pulsar is slightly more polished in terms of software and the kind of user interface and that kind of thing. But in the field, it doesn't make a great deal of difference. If you like simple, quick, the Rico's great, and it does have a really impressive image. I was very impressed when I first powered it up. I'd say the big difference between the two in terms of image quality, and that's going to be the big deal breaker for a lot of people, the Rico is very dynamic. It's a very sharp, bright, high contrast image. And it's great in that regard. It's kind of, you're not going to miss anything. Any tiny little critter or insect or vole, mouse, fox, whatever it is, it stands out a mile. Now there is a slight trade-off in that this high contrast approach, it doesn't produce quite as balanced an image as the new Thermions do. It doesn't have quite the wow factor of the Rico, but the actual image itself, in terms of sort of the overall picture and balance of the environment and the animals within it, the Pulsar probably gets it. If you're shooting over wide open spaces, 200-acre fields, valleys. You've got a lot of open ground. You'll not go wrong with the Rico. It's very dynamic, the picture. You're not going to miss a thing. If you're shooting in this kind of environment, which is sort of typical of the places I shoot, you might be better off with a pulsar because of the complexity of the environment. There's kind of trees, shrubs, farm machinery, there's all kinds of stuff lying around. And the ability to kind of get a more balanced picture of the environment when it's a busy one like this is a bit of an advantage. It does have one massive advantage over the pulsar for some people, in that you can bolt on a laser rangefinder. Which is fantastic. It's another £500, so it's not cheap, but it's an option that the pulsar doesn't offer. So that's maybe a consideration for some. The basic functionality is there. Diopter adjustment, straightforward. Simple long press, short press functions to jump into menus and select items, and the focus is just on the front. Really very simple. Another thing that is a bit of a strength is these pop-out batteries, which are, again, nothing particularly new, but there's a lot of power in there. You're good 6, maybe 8 hours, and you get two of these with the device. So that's quite impressive. And I've had no problems with battery life whatsoever. And it's a simple job. You just slap them in, twist the little lever, and it's there. It's done. Yeah, all in all, very impressed. If you're shooting over large expanses of open ground, the Rico could be a perfect choice for you. The mag range is very good. It's very bright, very good contrast. You're not going to miss a thing. If, however, you want things a little bit more balanced, you're shooting in a complicated kind of environment, you might be a little bit better off with the pulsar. But it's a close call, and that is quite an achievement for IRay, because 18 months ago, really they weren't that well known at all. 18 months, 2 years maybe. They weren't a known brand. Now they're not the cheap alternative anymore. They're right up there and producing stuff on a par with pulsar, which really is an achievement over 2 years. So the pulsar perhaps a little bit more polished overall, a little bit more fine-tuning on offer. But, if you don't need that, if you want high contrast, wow factor kind of shooting, and you want to reach out there, the Rico's a great choice. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now this is the Tube TL35. It's IRay's take on the original Thermion, basically, the original pulsar. It's very similar sort of device, extremely similar. They've gone with the same options where the sort of to-hand controls, the immediate controls you need in the field are on the back here, and it's a dial function on top, long press, short press kind of combinations, so you can go in and set up the various features. It's a 384, I always get this wrong, 384 by 288 sensor, so it's a smaller sensor size. So really, you can't directly compare it with, for example, the Rico or the XP Thermion, the new Thermion 2. It's not quite in that league because it's a smaller sensor. However, that's not really a problem depending on how you shoot it and what you shoot it on. For a rimfire, FAC air rifle, anything like that, anything that you'd shoot in the sort of 25 to 125 meter range, it's really good, to be honest with you. It's really good. I was genuinely impressed. It's got a similar style to the rest of the IRay sensor range. It's bright, it's contrasty. You get a very clear indication if there's anything about. You're not going to miss anything with an IRay product. But the image quality, considering the sensor size, is really good. And aside from that, probably the best thing about it is it's £1,700 cheaper than the Rico, and it's even, I think the pulsar's even more expensive than that. So it's you can get an awful lot of kit for 1,700 quid, and well, for general purpose, sort of close quarters-ish shooting, it's a great scope. Would I push it beyond 200 yards? No, probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. If you want to go to that distance and beyond, you need a Rico, you need a 640 sensor, you need the Pulsar Thermion 2, whatever. You do need that larger sensor size. But, you know, out to about 150, yeah, on a Fox, all day long. It does pixelate a bit, as we'll do some example shots, and I'll show you some images from both. I'll insert those shortly into the footage, and you'll get an idea of what they look like. We've got a steel Fox in the back that I'll heat up a little bit, and we'll use as our guinea pig, or guinea fox, whatever. Anyway, yeah, the Tube. There's not a lot not to like about it, to be honest with you. It really is quite a nice piece of kit. The battery life is great on it. I think it's up to 10 hours. It just runs and runs. They've actually added an extra button on the rear over the Thermion, so you can now switch between colour palettes. There's only 3 buttons on the Thermion. There's 4 on here. So some of the stuff you need to hand, you know, the recording function, colour swapping, brightness adjustment, that sort of thing. It's very quick, and that's one of the advantages of tube-based scopes, is they are very familiar, even though they work totally different. They do feel familiar. You know, you kind of reach in here, you adjust in there, you're pushing dials. It just feels quite natural, and obviously, any tube-based scope, it's very easy to move from one rifle to another. You know, you could just, this is on quick releases, I think, is it? Yeah, this is on quick release mounts, so you can pop this off, put it on another rifle, pick one of the other zeroing profiles, and you're good to go. It is very nice. I do quite like it. Right, well, that's enough talk, so let's get on with some actual footage so you can see what these scopes are like. What I'll do first is just get a shot with this camera, just to show you where the steel Fox is and how difficult it is to see without the thermal. As you can see, that's quite a tricky target to spot with the naked eye. Well, now we'll put these scopes to it, and I'll overlay the footage so you get an idea of what they look like through the Tube TL35 and the Rico RH50. So there you go, that's a steel Fox at about 100 yards. No problem for the Tube to spot that at all, and obviously no problem whatsoever for the Rico. They're both excellent scopes. I mean, this is a lot of money. It's an awful lot of money, and you're getting a good saving of £1,700 on this one, plus some change. Yeah, horses for courses, and what you've got the budget for, I suppose. They are great devices, and IRay have come an incredibly long way in a very, very short time, and there's lots more to come. Anyway, I hope you've liked the overview. As I say, there's a full review in the July issue of Rifle Shooter, and there's also online subscriptions, so you can get back issues, because obviously you might not be watching this a few days after I recorded it, so we do online subscriptions as well, and I'll put a link, overlay a link, and put a link in the description. Well, I hope you find it useful, especially if you're considering buying some serious thermal, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.